The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. This lesson contains 9 characters, 8 of which are based on a very simple pictogram with many possible explanations. Pronounced third tone, mao, mao. It seems the simpler the character, the more the etymologists diverge in their interpretations. I have found 4 competing explanations. Number 1, it's an open door. 2, it's an underground storage cellar. 3, it's an egg sac deposited and left behind on a tree trunk by some insect. And number 4, it's an object split into 2 halves. Why the divergence? Because Chinese etymologists usually find another ancient character containing that component and extrapolate from it, considering it to be the more primitive form. Mao is mostly used in ancient divisions of time, such as the time of day or seasons of the year. In yin-yang theory, it refers specifically to the end of yin, beginning of yang, or in other words, the end of winter, beginning of spring, and the end of night, beginning of day, which would tend to favor both the open double door and the object split into halves interpretations of Mao. Also, in oracle bone inscriptions, Mao is often found in phrases such as Mao er niu and Mao san yang, meaning that oxen and sheep were killed as offerings to appease ancestral spirits. This would favor the object split into 2 halves interpretation, with the animal's body left behind, while its spirit was offered up to the ancestors. This is why the origin of Mao is such an enigma. Anyway, my first example is Mao Shi, the 2-hour period from 5 to 7 o'clock in the morning, the end of night and beginning of day. And since Mao Shi is the beginning of the workday in earlier times, the expression Mao zu quan li is a reference to early morning, when theoretically we should have the most energy. 他那样卯足全力，一定比别的员工行。The way he throws himself into his work, of course he's more capable than the other staff. The meaning of Mao can be extended to include any opening, as in the phrase 丁是丁，卯是卯, literally something along the lines of pegs are pegs and holes are holes. In other words, to be meticulous and scrupulous, and not careless with regard to details or regulations. 你那样丁是丁，卯是卯，肯定不能追得上时间。Being a perfectionist will definitely not get the work done in time. 在工作上，你要丁是丁，卯是卯，不能草草了事。You must be meticulous in your work, not just try to get through it. The second character in this lesson combines the ear radical er with mao to create second tone liao, liao, an ancient pictogram indicating an ear condition called tinnitus in English, a ringing or buzzing in the ears, with no actual sound present. Of those 4 interpretations of Mao given above, the ancient definition for liao would appear to be derived from any one of the following. Number 1, the ear is a door or opening for sound to enter. Number 3, eggs left behind by an insect. In this case, not eggs, but tiny buzzing sounds that remain when there is no actual sound present. Or even number 4, something split in half, the pieces of words that a person with defective hearing manages to catch while listening to speech. As far as pronunciation is concerned, Mao serves as the phonetic for liao. That may sound implausible, but ancient Chinese used to have many more consonant clusters and far fewer homonyms than today. Phonologists know that ancient Chinese had a combined ML cluster, which can be found in lai or mlai, which became the phonetic in mai by dropping the L. Now we have the opposite example in which Mao or mliao drops its M sound and retains the L in modern liao. In other words, the phonetics were reasonably accurate at one time in the distant past. Anyway, liao is no longer used for ringing in the ears, but rather possible results of this condition, such as leaning towards the speaker, as a hard-of-hearing person naturally does, or having throwaway conversations, literally conversations that are left behind and forgotten, like the insect egg sac interpretation. The most common phrase is liao tian, literally forgettable conversations about anything under the sky. By adding er, you can give it that casual Beijing sound, liao tian儿。我今天有事，不能聊天。I've got business to attend to and can't chat today. 请他来坐坐，聊聊天儿。Invite him over for a chat. 天 can be dropped with no change in meaning. 你这样聊下去，我就没法工作了。If you keep chatting, I won't get any work done. Sometimes 天 is dropped and 闲 meaning spare time is added. 他们一面开车，一面闲聊。They chatted as they drove along. Today's third character is not terribly important, but it's easy to understand and again takes Mao as phonetic. It's pronounced third tone, liu, liu, and it's the character for willow tree. If you picture a willow tree, what probably comes to mind is the weeping willow, because its long, slender branches seem to split in the center and droop toward the ground. For this reason, it's also called 垂柳. 街道左右有垂柳成行. Weeping willows line both sides of the street. 人们称中国女人的细腰为柳腰. People call the narrow waist of Chinese girls a willow waist. Mao enters into the composition of today's fourth character, appearing above the field component. is pronounced second tone, liu, liu. This character refers to a farmer leaving some crops unharvested in the field, either intentionally to let some crops go to seed, or accidentally as an oversight. It's commonly used today to mean leave behind, remain, stay, keep in reserve. In this last sense, it seems related to the interpretation of Mao as an underground storage space, but also possibly to the idea of splitting something in half and leaving part of it to be collected later. Our first examples are related to leaving messages. 留言 你好，我是小林，请留言。Hello, this is Xiaolin. Please leave a message. 请留言，我会及时回电。Please leave a message and I'll get back to you promptly. Notice that 及时 means promptly, without delay. And here are ways to respond. 听到这留言后，请回我电话。When you get this message, please call me back. 听了你们那么多生日留言，我很开心。I was delighted to hear all your birthday messages. 停留 means to stay for a time, make a brief stopover, or to remain. 我有急事，不会停留太久。I can't stay long. I've got an urgent matter to attend to. 我们一会儿就走，没有时间多停留。We'll be leaving shortly. Haven't got time to visit. 水灾迫使开车的人停留在那个镇上。Flooding forced car drivers to stay in the town. 我在北京停留一天，然后坐火车到河南。I'll stay in Beijing for a day and then take the train to 河南。在国外停留几个月，会使你大开眼界。A few months stay abroad will give you a totally new perspective. 他坐在那里，眼睛停留在花朵上。She sat there, her eyes lingering on her flowers. 留在 translates as to leave someone or something at a place. 你怎么可以把婴儿一个人留在家里呢？ How can you leave your baby at home alone? 别把我一个人留在这里，我会怕。Don't leave me here by myself. I'll get scared. 留 plus a country name is the expression for a person who is or was studying abroad. Examples would be 留英、留日、留法、留德。他们的侄子是留英回来的。Their nephew has come back from studying in England. 留、留下 and 留下来 all mean to ask someone to stay behind, to keep them where they are. 他们一定会留你用餐。They'll definitely have you stay for dinner. 他去世后留下3个幼小的儿女。He died, leaving behind 3 young children. 请留下来，我有事情跟你讲解一下。Don't go just yet. I've got something to explain to you. 水灾过后，屋里留下一层泥巴。The flood left behind a layer of mud in the house. 留到 indicates something is to be kept for a later time. 我把最好的餐点 留到最后吃. I leave the best dishes for last. 这些话可以留到小朋友回家后再说. Save these comments for after the kids go home. 这个工作可以留到后天再完成吧. You can leave this work till the day after tomorrow, can't you? 不留情面 is an idiom meaning that a person is very strict and disregards personal feelings, which might lead to someone losing face. 他是一个不留情面的人. He's all business all the time and cares nothing about people's personal feelings. 你可知道他在工作上向来不留情面. Keep in mind that she's very strict when it comes to getting a job done. 寸草不留 is an idiom that literally means not an inch of grass remains, indicating the total devastation of an area. 山上的熊熊大火之后，寸草不留. That huge fire on the mountain left a scene of total devastation. 5月的水灾使得100里之内寸草不留. That June flood wiped out everything for miles around. 大雹成灾，把花朵打了个寸草不留. A severe hailstorm simply destroyed the flowers. To be careful or cautious, take notice of, or keep one's eyes open is 留意. Literally, let your mind linger on something. 下列是一些需要留意的事情. The following are matters that require your attention. 你别惹麻烦，我会留意你的. Don't go causing trouble. I'll be watching you. 请你留意一下我的背包一会儿，好吗? Would you mind keeping an eye on my backpack for a while? 他的不悦，我一眼就留意到了. One glance was enough to notice he was not at all pleased. 留心 is similar to 留意, but with more emphasis on paying attention, taking care to do or not do something. 你得留心小女儿吃的是什么. You must pay attention to what your young daughter eats. And finally, an expression meaning to take a photograph as a memento. Have a picture taken as a souvenir. 留影 literally, to leave behind an image. 影迷围上来，要明星跟他们留影. Fans surrounded the movie star for a photograph together. Now we have two characters that evolved from 留, one paired with the water radical, and the other combined with the movement radical. From their different tones, we can see that at one time they were extended connotations of one and the same character. By adding the water radical, we get first tone 溜 and also fourth tone 溜, depending on the meaning. It was originally the name of a river whose water at some point dropped straight down in one swift, heavy stream. So heavy, in fact, that the idea of 溜, meaning to stay or remain stationary, was used to describe the flow. At least, that's how one Chinese dictionary explains the combination. Today, first tone 溜 takes the idea of an apparently swift-flowing waterfall and uses it to describe speedy movement. giving another term for ice skating. 溜冰, the phrase most often used in Taiwan instead of 滑冰. 我们在河面光滑的冰上溜冰. We ice skated on the glassy surface of the frozen river. Another expression for slippery is created by pairing 滑 with 溜, 滑溜. 小心跌倒，地面很滑溜. Be careful you don't fall. The floor is slippery. Another common usage is the idea of skipping out, slipping away, and possibly taking something with you. 他一看苗头不好，就溜了. He slipped off when he saw what was happening. 他的情人从后门溜出去了. Her lover snuck out the back door. 别以为我分心，你就可以溜走. Don't go thinking you can sneak away if I'm distracted. And now, here's a common example using fourth tone 溜, in this case referring to swift, flowing speech. 她英语说得真溜. She speaks fluent English. 溜 with the movement radical is pronounced fourth tone 溜, and more rarely second tone 溜. Beginning with fourth tone 溜, we have the idea of walking slowly, strolling along with no particular destination in mind. This borrows from the original idea of 溜, meaning to remain in one place or stay behind. We don't have the everyday word for dog yet, so we'll have to content ourselves with walking a horse. 溜马, a perfectly normal phrase for anyone who can afford a horse. As for humans, we have 溜一溜, to go for a walk, to stretch one's legs. 我想出去溜一溜. I feel like going for a walk. 溜大街, literally to walk the streets, has negative associations in English, so we would more naturally translate it as to go window shopping, as I've done here. 要是明天不用上班，我就去溜大街. If I don't have to go into work tomorrow, I'll go window shopping. Second tone 溜 is found mainly in the phrase for loitering, or hanging around where you're not wanted. But it requires another new character that I don't want to introduce yet. We'll save that expression for a future lesson. Today's seventh character has nothing to do with mao, but is often found with our eighth character, so I'm introducing it here first. This simple-looking character, pronounced fourth tone e, has etymologists scratching their heads and offering up several interpretations, three of which are: number one, a pitcher pouring wine into another vessel; number two, a lizard or chameleon; and number three, a melting lump of tin. Three radically different origins, which, as I explained above, were abstracted from characters containing this element and said to be their original form. That's because the earliest oracle bone sketch is so abstract. Remember that characters were very limited in number in ancient times and were often borrowed left and right, simply because they had the same sound. That appears to be the case with E. Anyway, I'm going with origin number 2, a chameleon that changes color to match its surroundings, for the simple reason that later versions of this character definitely appear to be some sort of a crawling creature. Plus, a color-changing animal seems a more probable thing to record than the transfer of wine to a different container or a melting lump of tin. So, what does this character E mean? It means to change, which chameleons do naturally when their environment changes. 一手 means literally to change hands, as in selling or bartering. 没想到餐厅一手后会使我失去工作. I never thought I'd lose my job when the restaurant changed hands. 你怎么可以一手爸的东西? How could you give away Dad's stuff? 公公的画像以9000元一手. Grandfather's painting changed hands for 9,000 yuan. Since chameleons change colors easily and almost instantaneously, E also means not difficult at all, so easy. The phrase 得来不易 refers to anything that was difficult to obtain, from the tangible, such as a home in a nice area, to the abstract, such as the right to vote or freedom of speech. 肉冰了以后一切. Chilled beef is easy to slice. 我不可能娶她，她太易怒了. I couldn't possibly marry her. She's too moody. 街道的水沟太小，又易堵. The drains along the street are too small and clog easily. 那是一件易使人灰心的事情. That's something that easily discourages people. Our eighth character often pairs with E. It's a cowrie shell representing money with Mao phonetic. Pronounced fourth tone, Mao, Mao. Mao also contributes to the meaning with the idea of leaving something behind, namely your money when making a purchase. When matched with yi, mao yi, we get the meaning of trade, literally goods and money changing hands. When an American hears the name World Trade Center, he or she usually recalls the Twin Towers in downtown Manhattan, New York, which were destroyed on September 11, 2001 in a terrorist attack. In Chinese, it was called 世界贸易中心. However, many countries have some version of this name and building in their own capital cities. 国家外贸机构 is a national foreign trade organization. Also, a rather commonly occurring appellation for a building. 这两国之间的贸易有限. Trade between these two countries is limited. 这几个月来，出口贸易不景气. The export business has been in a slump these past few months. On the screen with Mao, I left another yellow character composed of the I radical plus Mao, meaning hair or fur. It's not a common character, but it's the origin of our next phrase, 贸然, meaning rashly, recklessly, impetuously, or blindly. The eye is peering through squinting eyelids with the eyelashes partially obscuring vision. In other words, fuzzy vision leading to acting blindly. Makes sense, right? As mentioned earlier, characters were often borrowed willy-nilly to represent the same sound. And this expression, 贸然, is a perfect example of that. In proper Mandarin today, 贸, meaning exchange or trade, has replaced the original eye squinting through eyelashes, 贸, in the phrase 贸然, and has also adopted its meaning. Native Chinese speakers generally have no idea as to the origin of characters. It's their native language, and they use it naturally, the same way English speakers never give a second thought as to why an English word means what it does. We just use it and go on with our day. Anyway, here are several perfectly correct examples of this borrowed meaning. 我认为今天买太贸然了一点吧. Making the purchase today is a bit hasty, don't you think? I do. 别贸然去找他，你会把事情搞僵了. Don't rashly go looking for him. You'll only make matters worse. 你要分外小心，眼睛不可以贸然动手术. You must be especially careful. Eye surgery is not to be taken lightly. 他会不留情面，贸然追问此事. He'll ask very pointed questions, regardless of your feelings or how it makes you look. 我不能想象他们会这样贸然行事. I never imagined they could act so recklessly. And finally, character number 9 depicts a form of punishment, slicing a person vertically while alive and displaying the horrific result for all to see. Leave it to human ingenuity to think of barbaric ways to kill someone. This character contains the Mao phonetic above the metal reticle plus a knife element on the right. It's pronounced second tone, liu, liu, and is a very common Chinese surname. According to one Chinese etymologist whose classes I attended, torture and animal sacrifice terms were often given as place names in feudal times, and from there they were assigned to the inhabitants living nearby as surnames. English, too, uses geographic locations to assign surnames, but so far I haven't found any related to punishment or execution methods. Anyway, the true origin of liu as a means of execution is known only to some etymologists today. Families with that surname have no idea about its origin. Here is our color chart with today's 9 characters. Mao, liu, 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 liao, mao, yi, liu. Here's a recap from today's lesson. 1. 8 of the 9 characters in today's lesson are based on Mao, which in its earliest oracle bone usage obviously refers to splitting something into two parts. Applying very basic yin-yang theory, Mao refers to the end of yin and the beginning of yang, which naturally extended to leaving winter behind and welcoming spring, leaving nighttime behind and welcoming a new day. 2. With that simplified explanation of Mao, we combine it with the field element Tian to create Liu, meaning to leave behind, allowing something to remain in place, possibly referring to a farmer allowing a portion of his crop to remain unharvested to provide seeds for the future. It could also simply be crops missed during harvesting and left behind in the fields. 3. Liu at one time had several tone variations to indicate related meanings, not unlike English verbs and nouns identical in spelling, but with different stress patterns. New characters were created to differentiate the various senses of Liu, namely Liu with the water radical and Liu with the movement radical. 4. Mao, as the phonetic element in Liu, was obviously chosen because the willow tree appears split at the center, from which its slender branches droop downward. 5. The phonetic Mao enters into the composition of Liao to indicate tiny ringing and buzzing sounds that remain in the ear, although nothing is present to cause them. They can only be ignored. This was extended to include Liao Tian, engaging in small talk, unimportant chatter to be forgotten afterwards. 6. Fourth tone Mao with a cowrie shell underneath indicates exchanging money for goods. Yi was included in this lesson because it combines with Mao, Mao Yi, for the proper term for trading money for goods. 7. Yi appears in the name of that 3,000-year-old collection of trigrams used to predict the future based on the principles of yin and yang, called the Book of Changes, I Ching. Many of the concepts are still in use to this day in various Chinese disciplines, from philosophy to fortune-telling. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.